Welcome to The Pulse, a podcast for members and friends of the Chartered Institute of Ergonomics and Human Factors, to see what is going on around the Institute and gain some insights into the people, processes, meetings and activities that the CIHF delivers. Hello and welcome to this slightly later edition of The Pulse from the Chartered Institute of Ergonomics and Human Factors. My name is Barry Kirby, I'm the current president. I'm here with the CEO, Ben Peachy. Hi Ben, how are you doing? You had a few days off the other week. Are you? Is that a dim and distant memory, or are you full, refreshed, and raring to go?
I am refreshed and raring to go. Had a fantastic week's holiday with my family. I've got a 4 and a 6-year-old who are full of energy and beams, as I'm sure other parents will know. But we had a swimming pool near us, and we had just a wonderful, relaxing time. And it was nice to have a break. And as we'll come on to, came back straight into our council and executive committee meetings. But I felt refreshed for those, and they went very well. So I was delighted with that.
So there's nothing to bring you back to work with a bump, then straight into two of the largest meetings we do in the year.
Absolutely.
So this episode is slightly later than our fortnightly thing that we said that we would do, because we wanted to talk about these two meetings. So these are two of the major events that we do from a trustee perspective. So the first one we'll talk about is the trustee council meeting, and then the next day was the exec meeting. So let's hit them. The trustee meeting or a council meeting, we use them terms interchangeably. The council meeting is made up of trustees. It's where all the elected members come together to talk about what is going on, some more the nitty gritty of what goes on behind the scenes with the institute, and really we try and set direction of what is supposed to happen, both how we're going to direct the staff into doing focusing their activities, and what we do and how we fulfill the obligations of what the institute is here to do. Because this was the first one after the AGM, this is now the first one that I'm hosting. I chaired as president, and also there were a number of new trustees. So Ben, you were really kind enough to use that morning period as a training session. And so I was wondering if for this podcast, you could give us a brief overview of that training session to describe kind of what the trustees learned, and maybe some of us less new trustees, we were, if I put it politely, how refreshed of our memories on what it is that we're supposed to be doing.
Yeah, thanks, Barry. Look, it was and it was a learning for me as well, actually. And so, going back to sort of going away on holiday, I had this sort of nice thing where I had this sort of deadline that I wanted to get all my work done so I could have a proper break while I was away, and getting all of the meeting papers together for these two meetings signed and sealed, which have to go out a week in advance anyway, and then getting the sort of the slide deck for this training session done. And one of our trustees, sort of Byron Edwards, gave me some assistance with that. Look, I think it was really important. One of the things that was really helpful is actually a couple of the existing trustees, i.e. people who've been on the council for either a year or 2 years, gave some feedback. I was saying how valuable they found the session as well. And I think, one of the key learnings is it's really important to do trustee training and induction for each sort of new cohort, because it's an important role. And I think, it's a volunteer role. And I think one of my jobs as chief executive is to help trustees manage their time, so the time they spend on this volunteer role is really adding value, but also ensuring that they and when I say they, I mean you, of course, because Barry, you are one of our trustees, fully understand your responsibilities, and what I've learned to refer to as the delegated authority. So as the chief executive, I have delegated authority to run the organisation to the strategic plan that is set by the trustees, but there are some key decisions that only the trustees can make, and it's my job to make sure we bring those through. So, for example, setting the strategy, that is something that only the trustees can do. Assessing the risks that the organisation face, that is something only the trustees can do. Approving the annual accounts, so that's something that I think we talked about that in one of the previous Pulse episodes, but that's something that needs to happen each year in advance of the AGM, because then the annual accounts then go to the AGM for approval by the members, and then they get published on the Charity Commission website. So the session was really to sort of go over a lot of those responsibilities, but also to discuss some of the grey areas. And you know, so we have the council, which is the trustees, and they've got some important responsibilities that only they can have. But within the council, we have what's called our executive committee, that is made up of the president-elect, the past president, and the treasurer. So there is some delegated authority for that smaller group, and that smaller group, and we'll get into that a bit more in this call, has a bit more oversight of, I would say, that sort of operational accountability. Again, that sort of oversight with the staff team, and then there is delegated authority to myself and the people, the employees essentially of the institute. But it's key that whatever we do, we then report back to the executive and council. And it is an ever evolving beast. Of the way I look at it is sometimes I need to, the decisions that get made, I almost look through the lens of, right, is this a ask permission decision, i.e. I need to take it to council first to get them to decide on something and have a vote and then we act on it, or is it an ask for forgiveness decision where I or the team make a decision, then we report it back to council, and to seek their support. So to give two examples of that, which we'll come on to is that we took a decision to seek ISO 9001 certification, which is sort of management system certification. So the decision to seek certification was one of those ask for permission decisions. So we took that to the executive and got the approval of council to move forward with wanting to do ISO 9001, and it was appropriate we do that because it takes significant staff resources to pursue it. Whereas as we're implementing ISO 9001, we produced, for those of you who have done this, there's something called an operations process document that really sort of describes our products and services. And we produce that on the staff team, and we're sort of working to that. But we have then taken it to the trustees to say, are you okay with this document? And give them the opportunity to sort of finesse it, I guess, and refine it moving forward. So those are sort of a couple of the core things that we're trying to do. But I think in terms of the trustee training, I think core things were, I presented 3 key takeaways. We went through about 40 or so slides together, and it was more of a sort of a discussion session rather than a sort of a broadcast session of people listening, but keeping the charitable purposes front of mind. So the Institute is a charity, and we have to abide by the sort of the laws of the land around charities, and really the sort of the governing body for charities is the Charity Commission. And what they very clearly state is that it is important that the trustees ensure, in our case, the Institute is pursuing the charitable purposes of the Institute and nothing more. And those charitable purposes, in our case, are described in our Royal Charter, which is available on our website. So any of our members can download, and specifically our charitable purposes are described in clause 3, which is on page 1 of the Royal Charter. And I'll read those to you because I think it's really important for our members to sort of know this exists, and to know that this is what guides what the trustees are doing. So what it says in the Charter is that the objects for which the Institute is incorporated shall be: 1, to promote learning and advance education and knowledge in the subject of and with regard to ergonomics. And then secondly, to promote human well-being by increasing the awareness and use of ergonomics knowledge. For those of you who are interested in the sort of the terminology piece, there is a separate clause in our Royal Charter that says wherever you read the word ergonomics, it means ergonomics and or human factors. So don't worry about that per se. But so I think the key thing saying to trustees is that every decision they take needs to be through the lens of, is what we are discussing helping the Institute pursue our charitable purposes? So that was the first key thing we got across. The second key message was that trustees need to attend and participate in all the meetings. When you sign up to be a trustee, you're essentially signing up to attend 12 meetings across 3 years. So we have quarterly meetings there every 3 months, so 4 meetings a year, and attend and actively contribute to those meetings. And what does that mean? Well, it means reading the meeting papers. So we had a pack of papers for the council meeting around 90 pages long. There is a lot of white space in there, and there's a lot of signposting to make it clear to trustees what we're asking them to do on each part of the meeting. But still, it is a 90-page package. And I was speaking to a couple of the new trustees and sort of saying, well, how long did it take you to prepare? And they were saying, between sort of, let's say, between 3 and 5 hours. So it's a significant amount of time, but not a massive amount of time. And also there is a duty that if there's anything in there that you're not sure about, or it if you have any concerns, say around our legal obligations, then you should be doing that additional research and preparation to sort of so that you're ready for the meeting. And I've also said to them, if there's anything you're worried about, you don't think is in the meeting package and should be, there is a duty before the meeting to reach out to the president, Barry in this case, or the CEO, say, hey, look, there's something I'm concerned about, so that we've got time to make sure we get the appropriate content ready to present to the meeting. So I think be prepared, and importantly, vote. I went to a training session to help me prepare the trustee package that was run by a law firm that specializes in supporting charities. And it was really interesting that one of the presenters there said there are very few scenarios, and in actually his words were, there is never a scenario where a member of or a trustee should abstain from a vote. Their view is that it's your duty to vote and to actively vote. And I support that. I think there are some sort of nuanced scenarios where you might not vote on something. So, for example, we asked the trustees to sort of vote for their support for the meeting minutes of the last meeting, and those trustees at this meeting who weren't at the last meeting, we can't expect them to vote on that because they weren't there. So there are some exceptions to the rule, but the rule is vote. And then finally, I think that the final piece I said is that trustees are our representatives. I think it's really important for trustees to be leaders, but those are sort of being visible to the members, but also being out there and listening to members. It's really important that any decisions we take reflect the wants and needs of the members of the institute. So it's really important for trustees to engage with the members in any way that they can. So I think that was the other key message.
No, and I think there was a lot of really good stuff, even for so I've been on council for a number of years now, but even it was fantastic just to be able to refresh some of the nuances behind that, because it's easy to get, I think, lost in the minutiae of what we do. But actually, I think for me and for a lot of people, that bigger step up to what is our charitable intent? What are the purposes of what we're supposed to be doing? And having that lens on the decisions was a really, really good reminder of that. So, and I think the other really important bit is around what you said is, if you don't understand what's coming up, we've got to ask the questions. Absolutely. Because we are making the decisions. But again, because we get the topic so far in advance, get it a week in advance, you can, yes, by the time you've read it through, it's a couple of hours, but I personally go through and annotate what they're doing. If there's questions, then you have, well, certainly as the chair of the meeting, I do need to know what I'm talking about. But also, to be able to bring that stuff forward. But it's, for every member, it's, I think sometimes you can sort of see some of these roles that you're a council member. It's a great thing to have on the CV. But bringing out actually what it actually involves is really key. And I think what you said at the time was, we're going to try and make this material available to members in the longer term, because a couple of the newer trustees did say it would have been useful to know this before becoming a trustee. And I think that is in keeping what we try and do here with this podcast, is to break open some of that mystique behind what goes on. But when you're putting yourself up for nomination, being able to actually say, right, it's great to have the title, but this is the graft that's involved, I think will be quite key.
Look, I absolutely agree, and I think the important thing to say is that whilst it's a volunteer role, and I would think in most cases the reason people put their hand up is they want to give something back to the institute, which is, I think, one of the things as a staff member is really invigorating. Is we've got this cohort of passionate member volunteers, and it's not just those who are trustees. There are volunteers as assessors, as mentors on our, all kinds of volunteers, and that's really energizing to sort of work with people with that commitment. But I think the other part of it is that it's a real learning and development opportunity to be a trustee. It will expose you to doing different things to what you do in your day job a lot of the time, and I think that's really important to say as well. I'm going through the same process myself. I've got I'm just, well, hopefully the final stages of the sort of the DBS checks, but I'm becoming a governor of a sort of a multi-academy trust of three primary schools, and one of the reasons I did that is that I think, because in my day job I have to manage a group of volunteer leaders, almost to sort of put myself in a position where I'm on the other side of the fence of being one of those volunteer leaders working with a staff team, will be a really good learning opportunity for me. And you're right, so what we'll do, so we did this session as a sort of a presentation deck in person this time round, but the ambition is for next year is we're going to put these learning materials, and we're probably going to break them up into sort of smaller chunks and put them on our learning management system for incoming trustees to do next year. But we'll make it freely available for all members, because I think, to your point, yes, it will help those who are thinking about becoming a trustee to consider whether it's a good role for them, but also I think for members who are trustees of other bodies or thinking about being trustees for other bodies, I think there's really good content there that they could benefit from. So yeah, we'll make it freely available, and I think it would be good CPD for anyone to do. So yeah, once we have it there, I'd encourage people to look at it. And also, if you do look at it, please give us your feedback and comments.
Perfect. Yes, and I think to go to the other point you made earlier is our role charter is available on the website, and so it is. It doesn't sound the sexiest read in the world, but it is worth just going to have a glance and seeing in black and white what our organisation is there for.
Absolutely.
You also mentioned around strategy, and you and Mark Young are leading the strategy review, because it makes sense, as Mark is coming up as president-elect, that he will have really the first bite at driving the new strategy forward. Could you give us a brief glimpse into what you and Mark expect to be doing with this?
Sure. So it was one of the I think two things. As I joined the organisation, there were two things that I was, my marching orders were: help us develop a new strategic plan, and secondly, to improve the organisation's processes. And so that process improvement we're doing through ISO 9001. But with the strategy, and I think this is pretty true, but I think one of the reasons that helped, I guess, the interview panel select me to do the job is the approach that I suggested even at the interview stage for developing a new strategy. And so when I was doing my interview for this job, they basically said, we need a new strategy. How will you help us develop it? And I very much focused on the process for developing a new strategy, because essentially speaking, I see myself as an expert in running associations, an expert in developing and implementing strategy, but I am not the expert in human ergonomics and human factors. So it didn't make any sense for me to come in at an interview and basically tell the room going, this is what your organization should do in future. What I went into the room saying was, this is how I will help you as a group decide what you should do in future as an organization. And I think that's an important nuance. So you're right. So we've set up, first thing is we've set up a working group, or we're in the process of setting up a working group that Mark will chair. As you say, it makes sense because he's the president-elect. So the new strategy will essentially be signed off as we go into his president year. So it makes sense for him to have that ownership of what we develop. And we're going to go through a process of building consensus around the future direction of the organization. And I've made a really strong case for having the data and insights to help us make the right decisions around the strategic direction for the Institute. And actually, I was in a staff meeting today where Tina said the next issue of The Economist is coming out soon. And if you read my comment piece in that, and actually if you go back to the comment piece I said last time as well, I keep reiterating the same point. We need better evidence-based to base our strategy on. So we are planning to do a member survey. I've been talking about this a fair bit. We've got in a proposal from an organisation to help us do that. We are looking to get other proposals in, and actually, we're keen to get insights from members. So if there are any members out there who are experts in doing stakeholder surveys, I want to hear from you, basically. I put a post on the community's site that I don't think I got a response to late last year, but reiterate, again, you can reach out to me via LinkedIn, just send me a message, but I'm really looking for any member expertise on what is good practice for doing surveys. I would gratefully receive. And Bob Bridger, who's one of our trustees, he actually sent me an email yesterday off the back of the council discussion with some good insights on that front. So we want to do a member survey, but data insights is also looking, there are other ways of getting those insights. So for example, again, I've spoken about this before, we are doing a better job of tracking how members are engaging with the Institute. So that is a good source of insight. And as the strategy working group comes together, we will be presenting those insights, both quantitative insights, but also qualitative around sort of the role of the Institute. And then we will work together to come up with a strategic plan that will basically outline our ambition and sort of the objectives and the outcomes that we're working towards, and then that will go back to the council for approval, and we'll certainly report to the council at their September meeting of the progress to get their input. We'll again report at the December meeting, and hopefully by December we'll have what I would call a sort of a first draft of the strategic plan, get insight and input from the council there. And then the final time we'll come back at I think it's March that we'll have the next meeting, where we'll hopefully get the council to approve the strategic plan. And that is good timing in that we will then be able to present at the conference next year. So for those of you who were at conference, sort of going on a slight tangent, one of the other decisions we made at council is we agreed the dates for next year's conference for, I think it's around April the 20th, but watch this space, and it will be at the same venue again as well. So we'll be looking to do that. And we had really good feedback on the conference. So yeah, please, as soon as we publish those dates, get them in your diary, and really encourage you to come along. So we will present the strategy there, and we'll also present it at the AGM that will happen just before just before the conference next year as well. So approving the strategy in March is a really good time frame for us, because we have those key sort of milestone events where we can inform our members on the direction we're going in.
It feels really bizarre already just how swiftly a lot of this stuff moves. So I've only just come into post, and we were already talking about when I leave and Mark comes in and takes over. It's this, when we talk about the amount of effort and things that goes in, these 365 days just goes in a flash.
Yeah, you're absolutely right on that. And I think, again, going back to my role and the staff team's role, is the more we can help trustees hit the ground running, the more we can help them do their job effectively. One part of an anecdote from a previous trustee training I've done in another organisation, where we got someone from the outside, someone from my network who I greatly know and respect, a woman called Una Harper, who's got a lot of experience as a non-executive director in a number of organizations, and she does some great training. And she said this really, really important thing. She said to the board I was working with at the time, saying, you have 4 meetings a year. Those meetings last on average 3 hours in their case. So you've got 12 hours. How do you want to spend those 12 hours? And it was really insightful. So yes, it's a 1-year term, or as a president, but it's a 3-year term as a trustee. But even a 3-year term is 12 meetings. So it isn't a lot of time. So the more we can do to help trustees be effective in their role, the better. And to be honest, that's what I'm passionate about. And I'm happy when I'm helping trustees achieve what they want to achieve, and running things efficiently and effectively.
Yeah, and I think that's fab. I think it's the little things, isn't it, as well as the big things about the way the meeting's prepped and all that, that just makes it really helpful. The next day, we also had an executive meeting, because we flipped it round in December, and we've done the same again here, is to have an executive meeting straight after the council meeting, because we're together anyway, so that works. But also it gives us an opportunity to reflect on what's been said at the council meeting, and allow us as an executive to say, right, well, this was said, what are we going to do about it, and be really sort of proactive and forward looking and outward looking, which I think is really good. I mean, certainly from my perspective, the both days were really, really productive, and it was just fab to focus on the same thing for 2 days solid. So the CIHF in its entirety for 2 days solid, and see so many keen people wanting to play a part in that. You mentioned it a couple of times already around the ISO 9001, and it's a bit of boring process stuff when you look at it. Who needs it? But I'm really proud of the work that you guys have done to make that happen. It's something that I wanted to kick off. I kicked off last year in terms of saying I would think we should do this, but the difference between me saying that we want to do it and the effort that you folks have to put in to make it happen. Anybody who's been through the process, as I have myself, knows that it's not just signing a bit of paper. It's about governing how we look after every single process within the institute, and this reflects, I think, just how much we're growing. We're growing from a smaller, substantial institute on a worldwide stage, but we're actually getting very serious about the way we manage what we do, the looking at the outcomes of what we deliver, the products and the services that we give out. So I just wanted to put on record my thanks and congratulations for getting the ISO 9001 accreditation. But obviously the hard work starts now, because getting the certificate is one thing, but then it's the keeping it that's the next.
Yeah, look, I agree, and look, it's new to. I'm a sort of a process junkie in many ways, and I think when you work in a sort of a member-led organisation where you need to drive process and consensus in many ways, I guess I'm a bit biased in it, but I think enjoying processes is a thing that helps you be successful in that kind of a role. And I'm new to ISO, or ISO 9001, and look, already it's really it's keeping us honest. And I'll give 2 examples. I mentioned earlier the operations process, but one of the things that can be a bit fuzzy for not-for-profit organizations is that definition of products and services. What is it are we selling? Because in many ways you could argue we're not selling widgets, we're not a profit-making body, but actually thinking through the things that we offer that are the value drivers for members as products and services is really healthy. And it took a little bit of doing, but it wasn't that hard to sort of break down what we offer into what we've called sort of 4 families of offerings that we have, and so I guess that was quite heartening in itself. And I'm now sort of trying to work out if I'm going to remember them off the top of my head, which I should do. But certainly, the first family is our member service. Is the member product essentially. As we have a number of different grades of membership. Some of those grades are which we're terming as standard membership, which essentially anyone can be an associate member of the organisation without any qualifications. And then we have the sort of the professional memberships, where either it's the chartered or the technical member grade, or even the graduate member grade, where actually you need to demonstrate a level of competence. So we've sort of subdivided the sort of membership products in that way. We then have our sort of learning services, and we've spoken about this sort of in the past in this podcast that we are doing learning provision. So we have, we're about to launch those sort of learning products. So that's the second family. The third family is the sort of what we call the accreditation services. So there are a number of master's courses that we accredit to say that they are accredited ergonomics and human factors courses, and essentially, so that is something that we offer. And then we also have what we call our registered consultancies. So that is also an accreditation service. So that's the third family. And the fourth family is in some ways it's everything else, but it's all around the engagement side. So it's the paid for events, which is really our conference, so the annual conference, and then advertising and sponsorship within that as well. So even just going through the action of documenting that in that way has been really powerful. And then a companion piece that is something that those of you who've done ISO 9001 will know is the sort of what's called the non-conformance log, which is essentially when things don't quite go right. And we've already got about in the 6 weeks of being going, about 3 or 4 non-conformances that we've logged in there. And again, it's just a good way, it's a really healthy way to make sure you're logging those things in the same place and making sure the lessons are learned from them. And one example which has been a really good example is around, there was a comment from a member who is going through seeking their technical membership, and that they are participating in some accredited courses run by Loughborough University. It's worth mentioning because I think it's a really good example, and essentially they raised something to us. We're going, well, because we have changed, we've made some changes to the professional competency checklist that has impacted this person, and to paraphrase, they weren't very happy about it, and I can understand why, but actually there are some good lessons from that. And the 2 key ones I got from it one was better data, and then a link one which is better communication. So the better data piece is that at the moment we only really know as an institute that someone is trying to become a technical member at the point that they submit their application. And I passionately believe that if we know at the front end that someone is starting that journey, we are better placed to help them on that journey if we know we're on it, if they know they're on it. So we're going to start working to think, well, how can we incentivize individuals to say, hey, institute, I am on the path to becoming a technical member. And then the communication piece that sort of builds off of that is that when there are changes that we make to the PCC, we could send an email to every single person who is on that journey to say, hey, we've done some changes, but don't worry about it. If you've already done those elements, we're not going to make you do it differently, which was the case here. Again, sorry to go into a bit of detail there, but I think that's a really good example of how ISO is going to help us improve and be a more effective organization.
Cool. And yeah, for all the people who says that process is boring, then actually I disagree, because I quite enjoy playing around with that stuff as well. Today I attended, so we've got this on the 13th, 13th of June. So I attended the Midlands regional meetup hosted by Fran Ives and Fiona Bird. And they had a presentation from Dr. Sue Wally-Lloyd, who is director at Lloyd's Risk Services Limited. And she's a chartered member of the Institute as well. And she gave us a talk on dynamic risk assessment and observing differently. I went along because I want to try and attend all of the regional meetups at least once during my term, to allow members to have an open door effectively to throw any issues or problems or any of their thoughts my way. But actually Fiona came up with a really good suggestion as well, because Fiona is part of that strategy group, that strategy working group that we mentioned earlier, that if anybody knows who are people who are not members but should be, they're working in our domain but they're not members, if we can gently ask them about why not, what is it that's stopping them from joining? Do they, is there something, is there perception there, or is there another blocker there And if we can gently ask them and feed that back into either ourselves or the strategy working group, then I think that would be really, really useful. So if anybody listening to this can take on that message and feed that back, that'd be amazing.
Yeah, Barry, can I just build on that? So 100% agree with that. And I was invited to a meeting with sort of human factors leaders that the RSSB, the Rail Safety Standards Board, convenes on a regular basis. And we had a similar conversation. Some of the people around the table and the people on their teams were members of the Institute and some of them aren't. And we actually got some really good sort of feedback and insight as to sort of what the value driver is. And so, absolutely echo that. We need to understand those insights so we can attract those people to come and join the Institute and make us a stronger organization.
Cool. So let's go forward looking now. We've got couple of events coming up. So on the 23rd of June, Tina and I will be hosting a star-studded black tie event, which is our annual award ceremony. And I'm really excited about this. I've watched it on a number of occasions. So historically, I think we mentioned this before, it's been an in-person event as part of the conference, but it's been online now. It was pushed by the pandemic, but then we've embraced that now. A lot more people have engaged with it. So we're trying it again, doing it online. So I'm trying to work out where I put my black tie because I haven't worn it in a while, but need to get that out. And it's quite cool because everybody who joins it via Zoom, there is also a bit which allows you to be on the screen as well. So if you're joining, be prepared for that if you so wish. But fundamentally, I think it's a lovely event. It's a fabulous celebration of human factors achievements, not only of the winners, but of the nominees and everybody else who sort of contributes over the past 12 months. On the same day, there's also going to be the Digital Health and AI Special Interest Group, which is on earlier in the day. And Ben, have you got any other events coming up that you want to highlight?
Yeah, only what you've mentioned sort of the member-facing stuff. Just one thing that I'm doing, which I'm looking forward to. So I've been invited to join a special interest group on equality, diversity, and inclusion as part of PARN, which is the Professional Associations Research Network. And it's a body that we're a member of, and essentially it's a membership body for chartered institutes. And so it's a really good space for me to engage with the chief executives of similar bodies to ours. And I'm really excited to sort of join that working group. Some of you may recall, so before my time, and led by one of our trustees, Courtney Grant, there was we did a publication that's available on our website around EDI from a human factors perspective. But I'm really looking forward to participating in this special interest group, and hopefully I'll learn some lessons there that I can bring back to our organisation. So that's a key thing on my radar.
Perfect. So thank you all for taking the time to listen and watch the Pulse. Let us know your thoughts in the comments of more about what you'd like to see, what you'd like to hear from, and what insights you've got. Particularly if you've got questions. If you've got questions about the Institute, how different mechanisms work, how we do different things, or maybe even to a certain extent how decisions have come to the way that they are, then just shout, just get in touch with us and we will do our best to answer them. We might not be able to answer every question, but we'll give it our best shot. Then if people want to contact you, how would they go about doing so?
So the easiest way is connect with me on LinkedIn and send a message, or you can also email me. So it's b.peachy, that's peach as in the fruit, then EY, at ergonomics.org.uk.
And if you want to contact me, then you can find me on most parts of social media or email me at president@ergonomics.org.uk. Thank you very much, and we'll see you on the next episode of The Pulse.
Thanks. Bye, everyone.